I think I'm muted. There we go. Welcome, basketball fans, to Behind the Basket. We are excited for this episode because there are so many things going on. It's a special Saturday edition, which means we have free agency opened, trades opened, and the draft. So there are so many things. We're going to try to fit in as many things as possible. We'll just go ahead and see. Let's start off. The draft is kind of a big unknown. There wasn't really a consensus number one pick like there was last season with Zion Williamson. Right. Like, obviously, whoever got the first pick was taking him. There were kind of three names being thrown around for this season. And, I mean, no one would have been, like, too miffed if they didn't pick one. But the Timberwolves ended up picking Anthony Edwards from Georgia University. Number two, the Warriors got James Wiseman, and the Hornets got the infamous LaMelo Ball. Those are the three names that people probably know out of this top 10.
So actually, about LaMelo though, that he made history, like NBA draft history, because him and his brother are the only two brothers to have been drafted in the top 3. So that was a pretty cool fact.
I think it was even top 5. They might have said.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And they have, who's the other brother? They call him Jello, but that's not his name. It's
LiAngelo.
LiAngelo, yeah. He wasn't drafted in the top 3 though, right?
No, so he had a little college scandal where the team was in China and he was arrested for shoplifting. It was a whole thing.
What?
And his college offers got rescinded, so he never played college basketball, and he is currently with the Oklahoma City Blue, the G League organization for the Thunder.
That sucks. Wow. Okay. So were there any other names that mattered at all?
Well, we can do a little bit of talking about these top 3. Anthony Edwards, I don't know. From what I've seen from him, I'm not like super sold on him as a number 1 pick. Mm-hmm. He seems like a shot chucker who doesn't have his head on straight. He's definitely got potential, but I'm afraid he's going to be like an Anthony Bennett or even the Wolves draft. They didn't draft him, but they got they just traded him to the Warriors. Wiggins, like a guy who's got a huge ceiling and just doesn't reach his potential.
Yeah.
So we'll see how he fits. He's probably going to play the 2 and 3 with D'Angelo Russell and Karl Anthony Towns. I think the James Wiseman pick was the best one of the draft because the Warriors need a center. They've always needed a center. That's been their weakest position for the past 5 years. So having James Wiseman, his ceiling might not be as high as LaMelo or Anthony, but I think he can contribute immediately to the Warriors right from his rookie season.
Yeah, better fit for the team.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, is that all that you want to go over with the draft? To go over.
I don't know enough about these guys to really say what I know. The Bulls pick at number 4 is interesting. Patrick Williams. Because this guy wasn't even a starter on a college team. He was the 6th man. So there's a lot of upset fans in Chicago because this guy was projected to be outside of the top 15 and he went at number 4. So it'll be interesting to see if the Bulls can make something out of him. The last pick that the Bulls franchise made without the general manager and the front office people who just got fired was Michael Jordan. So that maybe they're making some better moves finally.
Yeah.
Some of these other guys are solid. I really like Obi Toppin. He was actually a college player of the year. He went number 8 to the Knicks. He's a dunker, so his offensive game still needs some more rounding out. He's kind of like a Zion that's not as famous, but he had one of the top 5 most efficient shooting seasons. he was third or fourth behind Zion in that regard, making 65% of his shots or something. So he'll be good. There's a lot of good young guys, and I think we're just going to have to keep a rookie watch because it's impossible to know at this point what these guys can do.
I wanted to look at the Suns pick, Jalen Smith. What does he play? He plays forward. I don't know. I'm really interested in the Suns team this year after all of the moves that they've made. I really just want to take a deep look at their team maybe next week or something and see what all they're working with because they made some big moves.
Yeah, they are definitely looking like they're going to be a playoff team this season. We talked about Chris Paul to the Suns last week, correct? That's old news now?
I don't think we did.
I couldn't remember, but let's talk about it. That's probably the biggest trade to happen so far, the biggest anything to happen so far this season has definitely got to be Chris Paul to the Phoenix Suns.
So honestly, that's my favorite move out of all of them so far because I'm totally expecting Chris Paul to go there and them to be like a top 4. I absolutely think he can get them there. And I mean, plus Devin Booker and now Jay Crowder. I mean, they're going to have a great team.
It's so solid because what Chris Paul brings to the table is leadership and just a veteran mindset. Devin Booker's never made it to the playoffs before. The Suns are in the West. It is hard to win in the West, but Chris Paul, he has shown every single season that he is a winner. People were writing off the Thunder when he went to the Thunder, and they ended up being a top 5 team in the West. And Devin Booker is a better teammate than anyone Chris Paul had on the Thunder.
And we already saw how strong the Suns were when they went 8-0 in the bubble, Yep,
8-0 in the bubble without Chris Paul.
Himself is strong. So now with an added Chris Paul, they're going to be a top contender in my opinion.
I agree.
I think they've made some of the best moves out of any team.
So far, I think I'd agree from their standpoint. They did have to give a decent amount up to get Chris Paul. But if you're the Suns, Devin Booker is the best player you've had in a long time. You want to make him happy. He's putting up all-star numbers. And now he finally has a teammate who should be able to bring the best out of him.
And I think he's an 18-time all-star or something like that.
Something crazy. Definitely double digits.
Yeah.
But Ricky Rubio was a great fit because Devin Booker's had to play too much point guard through his career, and Chris Paul's definitely an upgrade. Chris Paul should definitely be able to help DeAndre Ayton as well with some good pick and roll action that I saw in Oklahoma. You saw that in Houston. And Jay Crowder's an amazing pickup. I was worried because they had to give away like Rubio and Kelly Oubre that maybe they were going to be a little thin. But Jay Crowder fills so many roles for them. He's a great defender at the forward position. He's an amazing three-point shooter. Him sliding into that lineup is just so good. Props to Phoenix for what they've done so far.
All right, real quick. Chris Paul is a 10-time All-Star. Just 10.
More than that.
Only 10. It is only 10 times.
I feel like the last time we talked about it, it was 16, but okay.
16 there's very few people that are that high. I think that's like a Kobe and a Kareem number.
Maybe we were comparing them to LeBron or something like that.
Still fantastic player and one of the best players to be moved so far.
So what other teams do you think have made some good moves?
My number one, and I think I'd put them above the Suns even, are the Atlanta Hawks.
You're right. They have picked up some people.
Atlanta, so we talk about them frequently in small little bits about, it'd be cool if the Hawks could do well. I'm a huge Trae Young fan. They've got a ton of young talent. John Collins is another great player. He puts up good numbers, but they're just an awful team, especially on the defensive end, and especially when Trae Young sits. But they just got Rajon Rondo and Danilo Gallinari. They had a lot of cap space, and I was afraid they were going to just overspend on like one guy and just give him way too much money. But, they got Rondo, who's going to be an amazing mentor for Trae Young, especially on defense.
Decent price. They got him $15 million for 2 years. I mean,
Yeah.
It's decent.
Great contract.
They were the team that had like basically unlimited cap space. So they probably still have a ton to spend.
Yeah, the other thing, so with that, they got Rondo to help out Trae. They've got Gallinari, who is a great 3-point shooter, which is always needed in the league. There's talks that the Hawks might be getting Bogdan Bogdanovic after the initial report that he was going to the Bucks, which he didn't know about, apparently. He never agreed to this sign and trade. Right. The other destination would possibly be Atlanta. They need to definitely surround Trae Young. And having Bogdan and Danilo, 2 laser point 3-point shooters. Trae is a great 3-point shooter, but he's also good at driving. If he's got good weapons around him on the outside, and just some more leaders, Danilo and Bogdan have been in the league for a lot longer than probably anyone else on the Hawks roster. So that alone's a huge bonus.
Who did they get in their draft?
I closed it.
I did too. I'm trying to go back to where I was.
I think I was impressed with who they got as well, because I think they got a defensive-minded.
I can't pronounce names.
Is it Onyeka?
Yeah. Onyeka Okongwu.
Yeah, that's a great pick because he's one of the best defensive prospects of the draft. And like we just mentioned, the Hawks are a horrible defensive team.
They need, yeah.
That's what they need. And I'm sure he's not going to be playing heavy minutes because it's looking like their starting lineup's probably going to be Trae Young, maybe Kevin Huerter. And then if they get Bogdan, he'd start. Mm-hmm. Then they've got Capella too. Man, I'm really liking this Atlanta team.
I'm trying to think who we're forgetting about. Yeah.
They got Chris Dunn. That was another guy that I think I wrote Dunn. Chris Dunn is, I imagine him to be kind of a younger version of Rondo. He's an incredible defensive player who hasn't really rounded out his offensive game. He's not quite the playmaker that Rondo ever has been, but just another good guard to pair with. I mean, if Rondo just takes a mentorship role and doesn't even get a whole lot of playing time, that's already a win with Trae Young and Chris Dunn.
Okay. Can we talk about the freaking Lakers? My gosh.
Well, I have my reservations about the Lakers still, but go ahead. Go and vent about these guys.
Coming from a fan, but they got Montrezl Harrell. Mm-hmm. They traded away. No, they didn't trade. Apparently, there was some kind of drama with it. It was Dwight Howard. They were supposed to re-sign him, and he waited to hear from them for like an hour and didn't hear from them, so he signed with the 76ers. So they lost Dwight Howard, but they got Wesley Matthews, Montrezl Harrell, and they got Dennis Schroeder from OKC. Mm-hmm. So I mean, all these players, they're adding more and more talent. It's ridiculous.
It is, and Schroeder is probably one of my favorite players in the league. If not my favorite player. He's such a good guy. I love the way he plays. He's just so fun to watch for me. He had an incredible year. I personally thought he should have won Sixth Man of the Year for the Thunder.
But Montrezl Harrell won it. So
they got both of them.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Now, here's the reason that I have my reservations about the Lakers still. At face value, Schroeder and Harrell are definitely better than the players they lost. Mm-hmm. But they're losing a lot of good role players who just fit into any system. They don't have Danny Green anymore. They lost Avery Bradley. They're going to lose Dwight Howard, who had an incredible year for them off the bench. Here's my thing. Will Harrell and Schroeder fit the same roles that are missing? So Avery Bradley, he's a defensive specialist. Danny Green's a 3-point specialist. And Dwight Howard was a rim protector and a rebounder. Harrell is not known for being a rim protector or a rebounder. He is a scoring power forward center. And same with Schroeder. Schroeder is a scoring point guard. He can shoot, but he's not really that catch and shoot specialist that they had in Danny Green. I just don't know if their fit and chemistry on the court will be as good. Wesley Matthews, I would say, is probably the best signing because he is a 3-and-D guy. I mean, Danny Green was horrible, but they still won a championship, and he did pretty good until Orlando. And Howard was putting up very, very solid numbers with JaVale McGee and Anthony Davis, so I wouldn't immediately put him off the table.
Right. I don't know. I think that they're still going to be number 1 seed. I think that they've got LeBron. So
I know. And Anthony Davis.
And yeah, my God. Yes. Isn't he a free agent? I keep seeing that he's a free agent, but I thought that we had said he wasn't till next year.
So he has he's in a weird spot right now where I believe he has a player option for this year, so he can opt into his contract and then become a free agent after that.
Mm-hmm.
What I believe he's doing, because he's also eligible for an extension.
Mm-hmm.
I believe the Lakers have bird rights on him, which we talked about before, where you can sign him over the cap. Mm-hmm. And I think they're going to wait and sign him last after they get all these other guys. Once they get Harrell signed, Schroeder was a trade, so he should be fine. But once they get Harrell and Matthews, and if they sign someone else, then they can sign Davis without having to worry about making it match in the books. So that's what I'm expecting him to fully stay for a run back. And I agree, my preseason power rankings, I think Lakers are still the team to beat. I just don't want to immediately say, oh, they're OP, they're so much better now, without seeing how their new additions fit in their team system.
Okay. Can we talk about how sad I am about the Rockets?
Please.
Oh my God. It's like falling apart everywhere. So apparently Harden wants out, and I'm okay with it though. As much as I love Harden as a player, I don't want a player that doesn't want to be there,
Right.
because then you're not getting the 100% effort and everything. So I mean, I'm pretty bummed about that, but supposedly they've been in talks for Westbrook and Harden. Harden wants to go to the Nets or to the 76ers to reunite with Morey. But supposedly Fertitta won't let the 76ers move happen. But if he goes to Brooklyn, he'll be reunited with D'Antoni, who's assistant coach there. But they lost Jeff Green today to the Nets too. It's I don't know what's happening with this team, but they have made some moves. They signed Christian Wood today, who's center. I think he's like 6'10". So they've got that. He signed for 3 years for $41 million, and then they made a whole bunch of quiet, small signings. They signed Kenny Wooten. I don't know how you say his name. KJ Martin, Mason Jones, Trevelyan Queen, and Broderick Thomas. So I don't know how many of those guys will go to the G League or whatever, because I don't know any of their names.
Yeah, I haven't recognized any of them. How many picks should the Rockets request for him, since Davis brought them 6 picks? Well, here's the other thing, and we'll talk about this later, is the Drew Holiday trade. For Drew Holiday to go to the Bucks was a trade package that was pretty similar in size to Anthony Davis. So it's interesting. Anthony Davis is clearly the better player, but yet they're getting same trade packages. So I guess it depends on how badly you want someone. At this point, I think Harden is going to stay, or he's going to go to the Nets, and it's going to be ugly because I'm pretty sure in order to make that happen, they're going to have to trade Kyrie.
Right.
Which he'll not be happy with that.
The Rockets, they aren't going to take like just role players for Harden, which rightfully so, they shouldn't. But they want a Kyrie or a KD in order to make that trade to the Nets. So
yeah,
we'll see.
Yeah, if you're the Rockets, you got to compete because you traded a ton of picks for Westbrook. So tanking's not an option. You don't have your own picks to trade. They can get other people's picks. That's certainly helpful for some sort of rebuild. The first kind of trade rumor that picked up steam for Harden was with the Nets players that aren't Kyrie and KD. That'd be Karis LeVert and Spencer Dinwiddie, who are both starting caliber. They're both good, very good players. But that unless they both make a huge leap, which you don't know that they will, that's just not enticing enough to get Harden to be traded. Westbrook is interesting because do you think Harden going to the East to avoid LeBron?
With LeBron, are you serious? No.
I think
it has anything to do with LeBron.
I think it's unhappiness with how the Rockets organization's being run right now.
Fertitta, and I think that he wants to be with either Morey or D'Antoni because they let him run shit. I mean, stuff. Oops, sorry.
The good old Rockets banter. Now, I do have a question. Do you think Westbrook is definitely more expendable for the Rockets, I would say, but it doesn't sound like many people want him. Do you think that he's going to be traded?
I don't think that the Rockets, I mean, if they don't get something really good out of either one of those deals, I don't think they'll make the trade. They've got them both on for another year at least. So they don't have to trade. I don't think unless they get a really good deal out of it, like a bunch of picks back or something. But if the rumors are the Hornets, which the Hornets, who did they get earlier today?
They just signed a big fat Gordon Hayward contract.
Yes, $120 million.
Way too many $1 million.
For what? For like 4 years or 5?
Yeah, it was a 3. It might have only been 3. 4. I think it was $30 million a year. So like $120 million over 4 years. Oh man, that's just way too much to pay for Gordon Hayward, in my opinion, because of his injuries. And I mean, he was solid, but man, they really strapping themselves down with that contract, unless they're hoping to trade him. The flashing banner is nice, Jake. The rumor was Russell Westbrook to Hornets. I don't know what they're going to be able to do now that they have Hayward for so much money. And there were talks that Westbrook would maybe be swapped for John Wall in the Wizards, but those talks have stopped. Am I frozen or is Elizabeth frozen?
All right. Hunter, you there?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, she just completely froze. All right, so you're with me. I got a loud background. Not a situation we expected to be in.
Usually it's me with the technical issues, but
exactly.
That's
So
okay.
Gordon Hayward to Charlotte. All right,
I
awkward
think
silence.
it's terrible. That's all I have to say.
Okay, so you got to play her with.
I didn't know
You got to play with a bum knee. That's the problem. Gordon Hayward hasn't been Gordon Hayward since he came to Boston. So now you send him to Charlotte on this 4-year, 100. How does this guy get paid this much still?
Because I saw a Max Kellerman quote. It said that Michael Jordan is the Michael Jordan of bad GMs. It's just they overpaid Terry Rozier. They're overpaying Gordon Hayward. I do not understand what they're trying to accomplish. There's nothing is good in Charlotte right now. And what makes me more upset than anything else is the fact that Boston could have gotten something out of Hayward with Indiana or a Turner trade, which Miles Turner in Boston is awesome. But then Danny Ainge is like, no, we want Turner and Oladipo. And Indiana's like, no, we'll do Turner and McDermott, which would have been so good because McDermott's a good three-point shooter off the bench. You get the starting set you need. So, man,
the Boston fan base is absolutely tearing apart Danny Ainge and calling for his head today. They want him fired.
I mean, he's done a lot of really good moves in the past where he's able to get leverage and make huge trades that have been in Boston's favor. And I think he just got a little too greedy. He's not thrown in the towel when he needs to. It makes me nervous as a Thunder fan because we are kind of getting to that position where we have a ton of assets. We've got young developing talent. I hope that we don't botch it up by refusing good trades, trying to ask for too much, by holding on to our picks for too long, because that would have been such a good move for Boston.
There was no reason Boston said no to that sign and trade.
I completely agree. And I mean, getting Oladipo would be wonderful, but
be realistic. You're trying to trade away Gordon Hayward at $34.5 million. You're not, and even on this new contract in the sign and trade, he's still getting way too much money for the player that he is.
Exactly.
So now you got nothing for Gordon Hayward, and he just walks out the door. And now you have you drafted Aaron Nesmith, and everything I watched from the draft show says Aaron Nesmith is the best shooter in the draft. Right. I don't know the draft at all. I can't comment on that, but that's what they're telling me. So you can at least fill that hole with a rookie, but not a good enough rookie. Gordon Hayward is still going to be and have that experience that this rookie is not going to have.
Right.
On top of Boston has made no other moves.
The biggest thing is that they had a trade lined up and instead chose to let him walk. They could have gotten back anything at all, and it would have been better than Gordon Hayward just walking away to Charlotte. And I think that's why the fans were so mad, is because they've just ended up not getting anything. Free agents come and go all the time, but if you have a sign and trade available, if it's the only one you got and you're getting something back, you can get it. If you don't want Doug McDermott, go ahead and trade him. The Thunder have been doing that all offseason. Hey, we'll take Danny Green and then trade him to Philadelphia for another pick. They did that with Kelly Oubre. Got Kelly Oubre from the Suns. It's like 24 hours later, and he's already the Warriors. Those kind of moves are going to get your franchise moving forward. And I think Boston just took a step back, which is really unfortunate. But what's good for them is that they did get Jason Tatum to re-sign, which is huge. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are definitely the future of the team.
So with Jaylen Brown signing an extension last year and Jason Tatum signing a big extension this year, it at least means these young kids are committed to Boston.
Yeah,
and that is very important moving forward, because Jason Tatum very well could have just gone to LA. But he didn't. He decided to stay in Boston, which is a good sign for Boston. But now they need to surround those two with actual talent to help them.
Yes. And there's still time. The next year's free agency is going to be much bigger than this one. So while, getting Miles Turner would have been awesome now, I wouldn't completely say the franchise has gone under because of just one mistake by Danny Ainge. If I was a Boston fan, I would be livid, but I wouldn't, be calling for Danny Ainge to step down, because I, as an NBA fan, still believe in his ability to do something with that team. Now, can they win a championship? I don't know. We'll have to see. I think he's one of the better GMs out there.
How many players need to be playing in Europe that were drafted by the Boston Celtics before we realize these draft picks mean nothing?
Yeah, that's part of he does have a problem with holding on to picks for too long and drafting some questionable people. But you guys got Tatum and Brown. That's solid. They've made some decent trades. You still got Kemba Walker for not too bad of an offer. I definitely prefer Danny Ainge over whoever's been running the Knicks for the past 20 years.
I fully agree. Fully agree. All right, so Hunter, this is your show. I'm just here, just doing what I do. Lead the way. What's next? What are we talking about?
Well, we see that Elizabeth is now in the comments, so I think we should take a moment to talk about one of her favorite NBA people, and that is Mr. Daryl Morey, the former general manager of the Houston Rockets, who is now in Philadelphia. The Sixers are making some amazing moves, and from what I've seen, the fan base is ecstatic about what they've done. So they traded away Josh Richardson for Seth Curry, which may not sound huge, but Josh Richardson had a very forgettable season. He's very good on defense, but like his fit wasn't great. Seth Curry has one of the highest three-point field goal percentages in NBA history. He's top of the league right now. And then they go ahead and get Danny Green. And I know we've got a Danny Green hater in the chat, but he's still a championship caliber guy who can do some defense, and he can get his game on from the three-point line. So Daryl Morey, he's going back to his three-point shooting ways, which is what you need to do when one of your best players is a point guard who refuses to do anything and pass the ball. So personally, I think those were some great moves. And then additionally, they got rid of Al Horford's gigantic contract by trading him to OKC. That's how they got Danny Green. So, I mean, Morey is showing again. Seth father-in-law is another interesting storyline about that. His father-in-law is Doc Rivers, who's the head coach there. If I'm a Philly fan, I'm very happy with what Daryl Morey is doing to the team right now without having to give up either Simmons or Embiid.
Okay, but do these moves actually replace somebody like Al Horford? Oh, wow, that was a struggle. We're going to move on. You get my point. You get my question.
Right. Well, it's what I think Morey is doing is he's recalibrating the team. The original 76ers, they were just a big lineup, but they were crowded. Their starting lineup did not have good shooters with Josh Richardson and Tobias Harris. Al Horford played so poorly alongside Embiid that he had to come off the bench making like $20 million. So while, this is another case of we're trading a big name like Horford for Seth Curry role player, I think they fit so much better to the point that their stars like Embiid and Harris are going to be able to shine more doing what they do best. Before, they were trying to make Embiid shoot threes instead of being in the paint. Tobias Harris was average at best, and Ben Simmons was good at what he does, but if you don't have guards that are shooting threes in today's NBA, you're a step behind.
So, with Elizabeth's technical difficulties and me, not really knowing anything about basketball and just winging it as I go here, we have a special guest coming on right now. It's the man, the myth, the legend, Martin Lee himself.
Martin, let's go. Hey, Martin, how you doing today? Don't know if I can hear you yet.
All right, so Martin's having technical difficulties as we go to bring him on. We can't make this up. Oh man!
At least I'm running strong today. Usually,
surprisingly,
it's a me thing.
I've got. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I've got plenty. I can do plenty of talking because of how many moves have been made. And maybe we can't bounce off each other as much, but let's see if I can fill up 25
Last question
minutes.
As I see fit here.
That's perfect. Just lead me on. Let's look at the next thing. That'd probably be the Jrue Holiday trade. I referenced that before. Jrue Holiday is being traded to the Milwaukee Bucks for a lot. They gave up 3 first-round picks and 2 draft pick swaps, if I remember correctly, along with a couple of their younger bench players. It's a big move. Jrue Holiday, I think, is one of the most underrated players in the league, but he's also not been like an all-star caliber guy. And I think he plays very similarly to Eric Bledsoe. Now, Eric Bledsoe did get
Wi-Fi's
traded.
back now. Good.
Hey!
I'm good.
I'm going to the backstage.
All right, Martin. So we're talking about Jrue Holiday to the Milwaukee Bucks. It's an interesting move. Eric Bledsoe is now a Pelican. I think Drew Holiday is probably a better player, but they play very similarly. So I don't know how much of a difference it makes. And they gave up a lot of picks, but I think that they win the trade if Giannis re-signs, which is definitely Milwaukee's goal. If they get him to sign a 5-year extension, I don't care what they do. The Milwaukee Bucks franchise has taken a win.
Yeah, this deal has everything with Giannis because they want to resign and they want to get all the help you can get from him. And getting Drew Holiday helps them a lot, but it'll all depend on if they're going to win the championship or how far are they going to go this season. Because if they don't go far, then I don't see Giannis really resigning that much. I mean, he could be signing this offseason, but if I was him, I'd wait the season out and see how they play.
I agree. That's what I'd do if I was one of the best basketball players in recent history, because there's been so many rumors to where he wants to go. Like the Miami Heat culture definitely fits Giannis. He wants to be a winner. He's a 2-time MVP and Defensive Player of the Year. He wants those accolades, but he's a humble guy. He's letting Milwaukee do their best to try and surround him with talent. Drew Holiday is definitely a guy that could maybe help them. They tried to get Bogdanovic. That deal fell through, but they're at least trying to surround him with the guys to make a championship run. And like you mentioned, at this point, can they do it? I love Drew Holiday, but is he going to be enough to push them further? Yes, Bucks definitely need to keep Giannis happy. But I just don't know if they are making enough moves to make a championship run. Free agency still isn't over. They can fill out their bench with maybe some more guys. I can't remember if they've made any other moves since the Bogdanovic sign and trade fell through. But yeah, keeping Giannis happy is definitely the number one priority.
Yeah, they did make a move, I think. They signed DJ Augustine. That's the only really thing they really did. DJ Augustine.
Oh, they got DJ Augustine? I think I completely missed that. I actually like that move. He's been a solid player who's just been on some really bad teams. He's been with the Orlando Magic for a while. The Magic have been a playoff team, but they're like the 8th seed every year. So that's a really good guy to I imagine he'll come off the bench for Drew Holiday if Holiday is going to be taking a point guard role. We'll see if they're able to land Bogdanovic. Bobby Portis, I remember him. That actually is a huge move. He's another good player who's been on a bad team. He's been in Chicago and New York, and he's put up great numbers. He's a good scorer. He might be able to take off a little bit of a scoring load from Giannis, especially since Giannis only plays like 30 minutes a game. So that is a good move. And if they can use the assets to maybe trade for someone else, if they can't get Bogdanovic, I would say that those are some upgrades because they get to keep Brook Lopez, who had a phenomenal year as a defensive anchor in the paint and being able to be a stretch 5 to open up the floor for Giannis. We'll just have to wait and see if they make any other moves and how Drew Holiday ends up playing with Giannis.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting to see how this plays out.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Let's look at some of these other moves we've got. Ricky Rubio got traded back to the Wolves, where he started his career. That'll be interesting because I don't think he will start. He was a starter for the Phoenix Suns with Devin Booker because I believe they played very well together. Booker as a scoring guard and Rubio as a facilitating guard. But you've got D'Angelo Russell, who I think is better at the point guard position than the shooting guard position. We saw him play a little bit of the 2 guard in Golden State. Of course, their team wasn't good at all, but we'll see if they decide to play those 2 together. The other problem I see with the Wolves is they have a whole lot of guys who just don't know how to play defense. Rubio's never been an amazing defender. Russell's not a great defender. Their first-round draft pick, Anthony Edwards, he's got the physicals for it, but he still needs to prove himself. And Karl Anthony Towns is kind of hit or miss. So I hesitate to call the Wolves a playoff contender this year.
Yeah, they had talent, but they are not a playoff contender this year. Because I don't think they have enough to be a playoff contender. Because, like you said, they got guys that don't really know how to play defense, and when you don't know how to play defense, it's gonna be a tough time to go in the playoffs. Y'all gonna have a tough time to make the playoffs there.
Yeah, I mean, we saw the Lakers championship run. A lot of that had to do with their defense. Anthony Davis, LeBron had one of his best defensive years since he was a Miami Heat player, and they were able to couple that defense when they weren't having a good offensive night. Now, if you're the Wolves, your offense has to be running on all cylinders every single night if you want to win, because you don't have a whole lot of guys who you can rely on to get a defensive stop. They've got Okogie. He's pretty decent, but he's also kind of an offensive liability, or at least he was. If he can improve, that'll be good. But that'll just be very difficult for them with how stacked the West is. And we had a comment about that with how difficult it's going to be in the West. It is just going to be even crazier, I think, with the moves these teams are making. Portland Trailblazers are making a couple moves. The Phoenix Suns made a ton of moves. I didn't get a chance to read that, Jake. See if
that was just a comment regarding the West.
Just the comment about.
It was originally about when we were talking about the Suns. It was just the Suns in the West, and you know how hard it is to win in the West. So I just brought it back up because you referenced it again.
Thank you very much. Yeah, because you've got a lot of teams making good moves with the Suns. The Grizzlies might get better. Houston will still be a playoff team if they don't trade anyone. The only team I can see really dropping is the Thunder, because at this point they kind of don't have anybody.
It's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be interesting to see how the West goes this year because they got a lot of teams coming to playoffs this year. You got Phoenix, Portland, Denver, Utah, several teams that can make it this year, and it's gonna be tough to make it in the West. And I don't see Oklahoma doing that well this year either, because the only thing they had was really Chris Paul, and they got rid of him.
Yeah, and there's also rumors as part of the Drew Holiday trade, I believe. It hasn't been finalized, but the Bucks are almost 90% sure to get him, I'm pretty sure. Thank you, Jason. There is a rumor that we're going to see one of the biggest trades in NBA history as far as the number of teams involved. Could be like 6 or 7 teams swapping players is what I've heard. A move that would get Drew Holiday to Milwaukee, and Steven Adams would end up being in New Orleans from the Thunder. If that trade happens, that means of the starting 5 that the Thunder had for most of the season, the only one left is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, because they traded Chris Paul. They will be trading Adams. Danilo Gallinari left in free agency. And they traded Terrence Ferguson, who started for probably 2/3 of the season. And they'll be keeping Lou Dort. That's pretty much all they've got.
Did Dennis Schroeder play in OKC last year?
He did. He came off the bench. He's definitely starting caliber, but that's another guy. I attribute a lot of the Thunder's success to him. He's a Laker now. And I expect Al Horford to maybe be on the move. I don't think at this point of his career he wants to be a part of a rebuild like there's going to be in Oklahoma. They trade Horford for more picks, more young guys. It's a bright future for the Thunder, but, man, they're going to drop out of the West race hard.
Yeah, that's the best about the good part is with all the picks they're going to have like so many picks over the next few years.
I know.
It's gonna be interesting to see what they do with those picks and what they can hit on, and and how they're gonna and how this team is gonna be built. So it's gonna be an interesting future for Oklahoma City.
Yeah, and I was mentioning this to Jake earlier. I'm a little nervous to see what they do because the value of picks will fluctuate. You know, some draft classes are better than others. You know, I personally believe that this 2020 draft class is a lot weaker than the draft class with Zion and John Morant and RJ Barrett. I could be wrong. I'd love to be proven wrong. But you got some drafts that aren't as good as others. You don't always know what position your picks are in. So if you hold on to them for long enough, they could decrease in value. So it's going to be a balancing act for Sam Presti to know which picks to keep for drafting correctly, and when do we trade picks and to where. Let's face it, with Thompson injury, it's the Lakers' title to take. Now, we haven't talked about that yet. Golden State Warriors were a hot topic because people thought that they were going to be, you know, a top team in the West again. You got Steph Curry and Klay Thompson coming back. You got the number 2 pick, James Wiseman. They've got Andrew Wiggins. They just traded for Kelly Oubre, Draymond Green. But then we hear that Klay Thompson has torn his Achilles tendon and will be out for the season. What do you think that does for the Warriors? How are their playoff chances?
I think it hurts them a lot because with Klay Thompson and all those guys, I had them being like in the top 5 of the Western Conference. But now, I could see them dropping out of the playoffs. That's how important Klay Thompson is to the Golden State Warriors. Now, maybe they can make it as an 8-7 seed if Stephen Curry can carry his team, but I don't know about this team right now.
I think they're the biggest question mark of this upcoming season. Steph took a long time off. He didn't play very many games last season. It was still a question mark with Klay because he missed the entire season as well, and unfortunately, he will be missing another. Draymond Green had a pretty poor season, but he is a system player, so I think he will benefit from the increased talent around him. It'll just really depend on how Wiggins and Oubre pick things up, because those are kind of the new guys that maybe we've got some agreements here that the Warriors are going to drop from a top seed, top 2, to 7th or 8th. You know, if Steph comes back at an all-star caliber level and he gets really well complimented by Draymond Green, and if James Wiseman comes out of the gate as a really good center for them, you know how well Golden State thrives off of good screens, being able to have that defensive presence. I think Oubre and Wiggins will be the difference maker. If Wiggins is going to be passive on defense and inefficient on offense, yeah, they're probably going to be that 7th or 8th seed, maybe even getting pushed out by a Phoenix or a Memphis or a Portland. But if Oubre and Wiggins get revitalized and they have a jump, I mean, Oubre was a 15-point per game scorer with Devin Booker. I'm sure he could do that with Curry, put up a good 15, have another 15 to 20 from Wiggins. They've got potential, but it's just so hard to tell without seeing this brand new Warriors team play together.
Yeah, like you said, if Stephen Curry can be like he used to be before his injury, yeah, I could see them being a top team in the West. But it's just hard. It's just a hard season for them because because coming off an injury, I can't really see Stephen Curry being back to his all-star level just now. But maybe next season he'll get some momentum. But right now, I don't see him being that all-star guy that he was when they won the championship.
Yeah, I don't expect the unanimous MVP Steph to just show up out of nowhere. He did have a rough couple of games, the few that he did play last season. But if he gets the whole season in, I think he can get better acclimated. And also, with the new weapons that the Warriors have, might give him a better chance to shine. You know, last year, he did have D'Angelo Russell, but defenses were able to focus on Steph a lot more because he didn't have Klay, who plays off of him so well, and they didn't have Kevin Durant anymore. As Wiggins and Oubre get more used to the system, I expect him to start playing very well again and probably be an all-star. Maybe 25 points per game from Steph. Maybe he'll up his playmaking, be more of a passing guard, maybe set some career highs in assists. He's always been a good passer, but we know him as being the score-first shooter that he is. We'll have to see who that is, but do you think the Lakers have it in the bag? Is this their championship to lose next year?
Yeah, I think this is their championship to lose because
Not sure if this has been covered, but if Anthony Davis does not re-sign with the Lakers, where does he go? We can touch on that with this comment, Martin.
yeah, he's not going anywhere. He's not going anywhere. He's gonna be staying with the Lakers. There's no way he's staying going anywhere else. He's just considering his options, and he's gonna be. And I expect him to be signed with the Lakers after a little bit after Thanksgiving. But yeah, this is the Lakers' chance to win this year. Oh, and I got some breaking news. Tristan Thompson is going to the Celtics.
Oh wow! Okay, so I know you're a Celtics fan, so I'll let you comment on that first. What do you think about the Tristan Thompson move?
I think it's a good move because I don't know what to think right now. But what I'm more focused, but I don't know about that right now. But yeah, Tristan Thompson, we needed to sign someone that can help us right now because as you know, the Charlotte Hornets signed Gordon Hayward to a big, massive contract, and that was an awful contract by Charlotte. But I'm a little bit I'm disappointed by Danny Ainge because we got nothing back for Gordon Hayward, which is completely just out of his mind because we were supposed to get Miles Turner and Donovan Drummond, but nope. But nope, Danny Ainge just decided to want more and more, but in that costume. And he has a history of doing this over and over and over again, especially with draft picks.
Yes, and Jake and I talked about a little bit before. That's definitely a GM blunder, and his draft pick strategy needs some work. But what I said to Jake is I don't want to fully doubt him because he is a more capable GM than most in the league, and I think he just proved that with the Tristan Thompson acquirement. Because, I mean, Miles Turner would have been great, especially because you would be getting him virtually for free because Gordon Hayward was leaving anyway. Tristan Thompson fills that center need that Boston has been looking for. So I think this is a great pickup by Boston. What else you got?
KCP is returning to the Lakers.
He is. Do you see a contract size?
3 years, $40 million.
3 years, $40 million. That's not too bad. I saw that maybe he wouldn't be coming back. He's had his rough times, but he really showed out in the playoffs. So retaining him for the locker room value, and you know, he knows the system. He's been playing alongside LeBron and AD. Probably good to keep him around. But, I mean, I've got to agree with you right now. Lakers do look like the team to beat, especially because the number 2 team in the West, the Clippers, do not look like they're getting any better. They lost Montrezl Harrell. They traded Landry Shamet to the Nets. They did get Luke Kennard, but I don't think he really helps them that much. There was rumors that they wanted to get Terry Rozier, but I think they'd have to give up too much for him. And again, I don't think they're going to be able to replace Montrezl Harrell with any player that's better. And if that's your number 2 West team right now, Lakers definitely look like favorites. And in the East, I mean, the Bucks, I have a hard time believing that they're that much better yet. We'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, it's gonna be an interesting season to watch, especially with less games than last year. Especially with less games than it usually is.
One team I am interested to watch is the Miami Heat. You know, they made it to the finals. They're hungry to go back. They've got young players who I imagine are only going to get better. with the Clippers, Paul George can't show up in the playoffs. Paul George hasn't shown up in the playoffs since Indiana. That's a problem. I was advocating with Elizabeth that I think that the Clippers should trade Paul George to the Rockets for Westbrook. I think that's more of a good move for Houston than for the Clippers. But the Heat, I'm very interested to see. They've made a couple of decent moves. They've got young guys who will get better, and they made it to the finals with basically the current roster that they have. If they get even better, because they were like a 4th seed and made the finals, they're going to be very scary next year unless people can game plan for that Miami Heat culture.
Yeah, because Miami is the team to beat this year in the East because we don't know how Milwaukee's going to be, and Miami just came back from being in the NBA Finals, so it's going to be tough to beat Miami this year.
I agree. I think I saw they might have made can Paul George win a title? Those questions are so tough. I don't know if the Clippers can pull it off because we saw how difficult it was for them these last playoffs. They lost to the Denver Nuggets. The Denver Nuggets are retaining their core. They're keeping Jeremy Grant and Paul Millsap. If Jamal Murray can get better, they're going to be a scary team. But, man, if Kawhi Leonard and Paul George are going to be losing to the Denver Nuggets, it's just going to be hard to say that current team as constructed is going to be able to win a championship because they can't even beat the Nuggets. How are they going to beat the Lakers or some of these other teams that are retooling and getting better? I'm anxious to see how Philadelphia does with the moves they've made or how the Celtics do with Jason Tatum on an extension and with a reliable big man. There's so many good teams that I don't think Paul George is in the right place.
Yeah, Paul George, to me, he needs to be on the right team, on the right fit. Because as a guy that leads a team in the playoffs, he has proven that he cannot do that. So he needs to be with a team that already had a star. And Brad Wanamaker is going to Golden State Warriors.
Oh, okay. The Celtics did not exercise their option to pick him up, correct? Or did they trade him?
He just signed with the Warriors.
Okay, so they dropped him. They exercised their option on Semi Ojeleye. That's who they kept.
Yep.
All right, so that's a minor little depth signing for the Warriors.
We are at the last minute, so I got to cut us short because they are literally waiting on me for dinner right now.
All right.
So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thank you for joining us tonight. If we need to dive more into the free agent talk, we will be we got to talk about next week because it is Thanksgiving. I don't know what the plan is yet. However, we can always just go live again. Maybe Monday, maybe Tuesday. Who knows? We'll talk about it. We'll let you know. But as of right now, we got to go. We're out of here. Thank you for joining us. We will see you next time.
See you guys. Thanks for tuning in.